The story begins in Egypt, where Pharaoh orders all Hebrew baby boys to be thrown into the Nile. To save her child, Jochebed places baby Moses in a waterproof basket and sets him afloat on the river, trusting God to protect him. Pharaoh's daughter finds Moses in the basket while bathing at the river. Touched by the baby's cries, she decides to adopt him as her own. Moses grows up in Pharaoh's palace, learning the ways of Egypt, but his heart is troubled by the oppression of his people, the Hebrews. One day, Moses sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave. Overcome with anger, he strikes the Egyptian, killing him. Fearing Pharaoh's wrath, Moses flees to the wilderness of Midian, leaving behind his life of luxury. Moses arrives in Midian and helps Jethro's daughters draw water for their flocks, earning their gratitude. While tending Jethro's sheep, Moses encounters a burning bush that is not consumed by the flames. God speaks to him, calling him to free the Israelites. Despite his fears and insecurities, Moses agrees to God's mission to confront Pharaoh and lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses returns to Egypt, joined by his brother Aaron, to deliver God's message to Pharaoh. Moses boldly tells Pharaoh to let God's people go, but Pharaoh refuses, hardening his heart. God sends the first plague. The waters of the Nile turn to blood, shocking the Egyptians. 9 more plagues strike Egypt, each more devastating than the last, but Pharaoh remains stubborn. The final plague claims the lives of Egypt's firstborn sons, leading Pharaoh to finally release the Israelites. The Israelites leave Egypt, carrying their belongings and livestock, singing songs of freedom. Moses stretches out his staff, and God parts the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry ground. Pharaoh's army pursues the Israelites, but the sea closes over them, securing Israel's freedom. In the wilderness, God provides manna and water for his people, demonstrating his care. On Mount Sinai, God gives Moses the 10 Commandments, a covenant with his people. While Moses is on the mountain, the Israelites create a golden calf to worship, angering God and Moses. Despite challenges, Moses faithfully leads God's people, preparing them to enter the Promised Land. Following God's detailed instructions, the Israelites construct the tabernacle, a sacred place where God's presence would dwell among his people. God's glory fills the tabernacle as a cloud by day and fire by night, symbolizing his guidance and protection over Israel. When the Israelites disobey God, Moses intercedes on their behalf, pleading for mercy and forgiveness. Moses sends 12 spies to explore the Promised Land. Upon their return, 10 spread fear, but Joshua and Caleb encourage the people to trust in God's promise. The Israelites rebel against entering the Promised Land, leading to God's decree that they will wander the wilderness for 40 years. When the Israelites complain of thirst, Moses disobeys God by striking a rock twice instead of speaking to it, leading to consequences for his leadership. God commands Moses to craft a bronze serpent on a pole so that those bitten by snakes can look at it and live, symbolizing faith and redemption. Moses mourns the death of his sister Miriam, who had been a leader and prophetess among the Israelites. God calls Aaron to ascend Mount Hor, where he peacefully passes away, and his priestly garments are passed on to his son Eleazar. Near the end of his life, Moses gathers the Israelites to deliver his farewell address, reminding them of God's laws and promises. God leads Moses to Mount Nebo, where he views the promised land from afar, though he is not permitted to enter it. Moses dies at the age of 120, and God himself buries him in an unknown location, marking the end of an extraordinary life. After Moses' death, Joshua is appointed by God to lead the Israelites into the Promised Land, continuing Moses' mission. The Israelites remember Moses as the greatest prophet who spoke with God face to face, honoring his faithfulness and leadership. The story ends with a reminder that God's promise to his people continued beyond Moses, leading to the fulfillment of his plans through Christ. The story of Moses is a profound reminder of God's mercy, patience, and power to redeem. Just as God called Moses from a life of luxury and into a life of divine purpose, he calls each of us to turn away from the distractions and sin that separate us from him. Moses made mistakes, doubted his abilities, and even tried to run from God's calling. Yet God's grace was enough. He forgave, restored, and used Moses mightily for his glory. In the same way, no matter how far you've wandered or how unworthy you may feel, God is calling you to turn back to him. He is ready to free you from whatever enslaves your heart, just as he freed the Israelites from bondage in Egypt. Today is the day to let go of fear, guilt, and sin, and step into the freedom and purpose God has planned for your life. Will you respond to his call? God is here, waiting with open arms, just as he was for Moses, just as he was for his people. He wants to lead you out of the darkness and into his marvelous light. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone. The new is here. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Produced by Anita Ayaeasy. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share.